join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red. Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm your host, Greg Oram, and with me on the panel, I'm delighted to be joined by the Statman, Danscape, the Grand Madness, Andrew Cove, and it's a huge welcome return to the channel to Warriors United founder, Helen Coppins. Nottingham Forest hosted Leeds United at the City Ground today in what many described as a must-win match for the Reds. Forest showed a discipline and belief that's growing steadily under Sean Dyche. It's not just about heart, but about structure, precision, and each player taking responsibility and putting in the kind of shift that reminds you why we love this club, meaning Forest ran away 3-1 winners. We've waited weeks for this feeling. Control, unity, purpose. Forest aren't just fighting, they're building. A huge 3 points that closes the gap to the pack above and entering the international break on a high and in what feels like the most stable state the club has been for months. Tonight, we'll unpack what it means for the season, for the players, and for the fans who've had little to shout about all season, but who can finally start rocking all over the world.
Looking for room for the cross, and Shangari with his first ever goal for Nottingham Forest. They weren't behind for long. Murillo pushes Hutchinson a little wider than maybe he would have wanted. Hutchinson's ball in, and the changes pay off for Sean Dyche.
It's a brilliant delivery. There's pace on the ball.
Anderson settles it. First Premier League win.
It's always nice to relive the Forest goals, a little bit of a remix of that tune. No Richard with us tonight, unfortunately, but I've got three huge Forest fans to help me through this episode. So let's get straight into it. Danscape, I'll come to you first. Great to see you. Dan, were you at the match today? I wasn't quite sure if you made it or not. No. You didn't make this one. So watching on TV like myself and many others, general thoughts on the game, Dan, how it unfolded. And of course, the team selection when it came out, we saw Sangare coming in after the performance in Europe against Graz, and he'd been one that Sean Dyche had pinpointed he was very happy with on Thursday. So he gave him another run out today. Were you happy with the team? And again, what were your thoughts on that game as a whole?
Overall, look, always nice to beat Leeds. One of those teams that it just feels good to beat, whatever league or situation or you're in. So that's a bonus on top of obviously the context of where we are and what we needed. I think overall, like getting back level earlier when we went behind was absolutely crucial in the game. I think if it had dragged on without, with us being 1-0 down, it could have gone differently, and that was massive. So that was great that we did that. I think in terms of the lineup before the game, I actually was a bit, a bit concerned because it just seemed like quite a conservative approach for a game like that, where it felt like we could be the dominant team, and I didn't think they offered that much threat, but we went with the kind of the more defensive setup in midfield and everything. So I did have doubts and concerns before the game, and it sort of took us a while to obviously see the impact of the subs. And I think overall, though, the game plan was spot on to bring those subs on when he did and change the game and have that extra energy. So just great to see us back on track, really.
Fantastic. And Helen, you were at the match. I saw some of the pictures you shared with me earlier with Matt. How many Warriors were with you today, and how did they enjoy it?
There's always 5. So we always have 5 young people, 5 parents, and they said it was brilliant. I mean, who doesn't want to be at a match when you're winning? So, and Matt, I mean, his favourite thing in the world is dancing to Rocking All Over the World. So I don't know if you've ever seen him on one of those the YouTube things at the end where they show like everything that's happened that day behind the scenes, and you just see Matt rocking out, and so he did it today, and he was finally happy. So
fantastic. And what did you make of the team selection? Were you happy with the team when it came out, and just generally, Helen, what did you make of the match?
I mean, the team selection was, I didn't really think there was much option because so many people injured. We were limited on the wing, so it was interesting to see how Nico Dominguez, that is, on the wing. he did okay. But I mean, he's a player coming back from injury as well, so I didn't expect him to be amazing, but he did okay. I mean, it was, pretty standard selection, I suppose, for what he had to go with. When the subs came on, the guy next to me was like, "Oh, for flip's sake, not them again." And I was like, "No, give them a chance," and they just turned it around. And I mean, I'm a Yates lover, so just some stability in the middle is what he brings. Amari Hutchinson was fantastic today. I think he was key in 2 of the goals. It was good.
It was good. I mean, we must say as well, you are right to point out that, we are kind of limited a little bit. We've got a lot of players on the injury list. And so Andrew, Sean Dyche, when he's picking his 11, is also thinking about the impact he's going to need from that bench, which is maybe his thinking into why Hutchinson, was left to come on later. How did you see the whole game unfold, mate?
I think to Dan's point on it being a little bit conservative, I think we've got a manager who, on 2 levels, he's always going to err on the side of caution, at least in this stage of his Forest tenure. So you want to stay in games. We have this horrible habit of shipping goals. So you need to stay in games. I know that didn't quite go to plan when we conceded that goal early on. But I think that's the difference between picking Dominguez at the moment over Hutchinson. Whether that's going to pivot and change going forward, because we have seen the impact that Hutchinson can have going forward. Maybe that changes. But I think Dyche, historically has been, not a negative manager, but a defensively minded manager. So I think when you're picking a team and you want to stay in games and just, stop the rot, stop Forest, losing goals earlier and keeping Forest in games, I think that team selection kind of mirrored that. So the only question mark I would have had, and again, hindsight's 2020, but I think the way Taiwo has been playing off the bench, maybe in a Sean Dyche team where you need a physical presence up top, that number 9, you could maybe make an argument for putting Taiwo instead of Jesus, because you get a different type of player, that can hold the ball up and allow you that second phase, moving into the final third. But other than that, I think the team selection was fine. I think to the point on Sangare, he's been very good. I think we know, how much he differs people in terms of opinions, but he got the goal. He was majestic at times in that number 6 role. So yeah, I was happy with it. Like I said, Taiwo maybe instead of Jesus would be the only question mark I'd have, but I get it. And the proof's in the pudding. We were in the game when the subs came on and we ended up winning the game 3-1. So hats off to Dyche. He got it right.
He did. Okay. So if you're with us in the comments, please do let us know you're here. 1 or 2 already have joined us. Please do go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button as well. If you can, follow us on all the social media channels, X and Twitter and TikTok and the like. And 5-star reviews. They're lovely if you can on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Right, Danscape. Let's get into the first kind of bit of action, because I thought we were controlling the game fairly well, and then Leeds scored. How did that happen?
Unfortunately, an error from Savona, wasn't it? Really, the player was behind him, and he just hesitated too long on the ball to just put a foot in or clear it or get rid of something. And to be fair to Leeds, it was a really good finish. They took that chance really well. We talked in the preview about how quickly they will shoot, as soon as they get into the final third, and they did exactly that and put it right in the bottom corner. So it was a good goal by them in the end. But yeah, it was definitely sort of our error, unfortunately, which, like I say, at the time you're thinking, oh God, where can we get back into this game at that point? Is it going to sort of turn a little bit quiet in the stadium and things like it sometimes does when you're 1-0 down and the pressure kind of builds a bit? So yeah, frustrating goal to concede, but then obviously the reaction was great. And I suppose you'll go through the goal with someone else on the panel, but it's just good to see Sangare get his first goal. I thought that was actually a really good moment, because it has been a long time coming. And I remember him having he had a similar chance against Luton. I remember when that 2-2 game against Luton.
I was there for that. I remember that. You're right. He did have exactly the same.
Put it wide,
chance.
And it's kind of like, finally to see him kind of get a goal and like pop up unexpected, it get us back in the game. It was good.
Fantastic. Ross Taylor is with us in the comments. Friend of the show, says, greetings from Texas, y'all. The ship is back on course. It doesn't need to be pretty to get it done. Come on, you Reds. As well, we have Vic Trickius. Come on, you Reds. And Brucey, as always. Hello all, Andrew. The head is looking extra shiny today, he says. Daz says, evening guys and girls. What a nice end to the weekend. Also one from Pat Brett, of course, talking about subs changing the game. Gave us the energy and impetus, putting Leeds on the back foot. Dave, the Red Dog, says, good to go into the international break on a high. Paul Morley's in the chat. He says, fun fact all, Liverpool are the only team in the Premier League now without a draw this season. Maybe they're due one. And of course, we play them next. And I think we'd all take a point right now if we could. Helen, where are you on Sangare? Because he is a chap that is divided opinion. So I'm interested to know what you think about Ibrahim Sangare and just how good was it for him to score a goal today?
Yeah, he is one that divides like people. I haven't warmed to him. I've always been like, oh no, Sangare's on the pitch. You know, when I see him in the team selection, I never go, yay. Maybe today I might change my mind. I don't know. I'm pleased for him. I'm really pleased that he scored a goal because he needed it, and it hopefully will boost his confidence. He seems to be a bit less tempestuous as well now. He used to literally every match he played, he got a yellow card, he got a red card, he just lost it and had to be subbed off because of that, rather than because of his quality of his play necessarily. So yeah, I mean, it was brilliant to see him get a goal. To be fair, I didn't see the goal because Matt was playing up, so hazards of taking my son to a match. But you know, I was there to hear the resulting cheers and be part of the celebrations. But yeah, it was. So don't ask me about the goal. Maybe move on to someone else for the goal.
That's fine.
No. Watch the other two.
And what I will ask you before I go to Andrew is just to go back to the goal we conceded, because I don't know what kind of view you had of it, but it was Savona kind of hesitating to clear the ball. And I've listened to the Deitch press conference after match, and he doesn't dig out Savona in any way, shape, or form. And he says, look, you know, he's come into the team. He's performed quite well. And my opinion, Helen, is that Savona seems like he's settled really well, albeit he had a moment today. How have you found the new players in general settling in, and Savona in particular? You know, he seems to have settled down now into that right back slot, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, Savona's got a really hard job because everyone loves Oloaina, and you know, to have to fit into his shoes, it's a really difficult thing. I mean, I think he's done a good job, like I say, and what impressed me today was the fact that, you know, he made that mistake, and yes, everyone was watching him and be like, oh, for flip's sake. And the rest of the defense didn't kind of show up either at that point, but he got straight back into it. He didn't kind of sit there going, you know, it didn't seem to faze him. He just got straight back, and he played a really good game after that. So, you know, all credit to him.
Yeah, he didn't mope, and that's important. I think Nico might have got over to the player who scored and closed down a bit. So there was still work to be done once Savona had not reacted quickly enough. But it was a couple of minutes, Andrew, and that response from Sangare, that goal, I was feeling all doom and gloom again. You know, I'm going through the roller coaster of roller coasters at the moment, and my anxiety levels are just like on tenterhooks. So when we go 1-0 down, I'm like, that's it, we're getting relegated. That's it, the season's over. But thankfully, it only took a couple of minutes for me to be feeling good again. How important was it, though, that goal came so quickly?
Oh, obviously, it's vitally important. You said it yourself, and I think Dan touched on it as well. The longer you stay behind, you start to lose the crowd. You know, we've been there. You know, we've experienced this before, where we concede early, we can't get back into games. I think they made a point on commentary that we hadn't scored a goal past the 57th minute in any league game this season, which is incredible when you think about it. So the longer we aren't in a game, or the longer it takes us to not get back into a game, history suggests then that we're not going to get back into it. So the goal itself, I thought, one name that we've not mentioned yet that did incredibly well for the goal was Dan Ndoye. I thought because he broke to the line first, and I thought he was going to cross it. It was nailed on that he was going to, you know, chip it over with his right foot. But he did this incredible little cut back, played the ball across. I think their keeper should have done a lot better. And I know they mentioned that in the commentary as well, but he's pretty much done a Matt Turner, laid it on a plate for whoever's coming in the middle of the box. And I think they also mentioned in commentary that Sangare is a number 6. He shouldn't be in that position. I think when the move started, he was on the halfway line, and he's tracked in to get into the box to be in a position to, you know, pick up the scraps. So credit Ndoye for what he did to actually, you know, make that chance possible in the first place. And then for Sangare to be there. to your point as well, an incredibly composed finish. I think he didn't exactly, welly it in. I think there was a composure there, and he actually placed it, with pace, with the side of his foot. So, yeah, hopefully he can kick on. I think, we're starting to see, and we'd mentioned this a few times already this season with Sangare, that we're starting to see that £30 million player that we hoped we'd bought, when we first got him. We're seeing, little glimpses of that. So between him, Yates, and when I think Louise comes back, we've got a pretty solid core at that number 6 kind of box to box, the engine room piece in the club. So, yeah, getting the goal back when we did, I think was critical. The longer we leave it, the crowd, you start to lose the crowd, and then it becomes more and more difficult as the game goes on to get back into the game.
Just losing your camera quite a bit at the moment, Andrew. Again, your audio's fine. We're just flagging it up to you, so nothing to worry about. On Sangare, it's quite interesting that he does seem to be settling in more than ever and finding his feet in this team when he's on the pitch. Still picks up too many yellows. He got the yellow today. And I thought for 1 second that he was going to get a red card when he was running back, but he was really disciplined. And, you could see he wanted to jump in, but he didn't, and managed to maintain, just hassling the player without fouling him. So with AFCON on the horizon, Dan, it'd be just sod's law that he just manages to click into place and goes off to AFCON, and we have another AFCON nightmare, because that is what seemed to kind of really stop his momentum a couple of years ago. But it's interesting. I want to talk about Dan Ndoye because Andrew raised him, and I thought he had a good game today. But there's others that I've seen and spoken to that didn't think he had a good game, and that's fine. I know that you flagged him up as a potential target before we did sign him, Dan. Where were you on his performance today?
Yeah, I think what we saw in that first goal is what I thought he perhaps will bring that, maybe Elanga didn't bring. And there's obviously things that Elanga brought that he can't as well in terms of pace and explosion away. But I think he's very calm on the ball. And sometimes that looks like he's perhaps a bit slow and lazy with it. And, sometimes he does get muscled off it easily. But at the same time, he's prepared to take a touch in those dangerous areas and think about what he's doing next, as opposed to just doing the first thing that comes into mind, which sometimes can be just, hitting the ball across an empty box or whatever. So hitting it into the defender as well. So taking that touch to cut back inside and actually put a ball into a more dangerous position with the players allowed time to catch up as well. Because that's often the problem when you break away quickly, is you don't have a Sangare in the box because he is still 2 or 3 steps behind. So I think he's smart in that respect. And I think overall in the game, there was more moments that impressed me from him than I had, that I thought were a bit naff. So later on in the game, there was a couple of times he got muscled off it a little bit easily, but also later on in the game, he got back and made some tackles and things. And, later on, there was one in particular where I think he'd kind of got muscled off the ball, but then he ran back in and got a block on the ball to send it back towards their keeper and stuff. And I just think he's the kind of player I like, because you can see the effort and you can see that he's thinking about the game for me, and not just, kind of it's caught in the moment. I can see that he wants to do what the team needs as opposed to just what he wants to do. And I always kind of, like that in a player, which is why, I thought he'd suit us. So I didn't really have any complaints with him today. I think the comparison is that Hutchinson comes on and does what he does, and people are thinking every winger should be like that. But I think there is a role for different kinds of winger, in the team.
Yeah, and like I said, I thought Dan Ndoye did okay today. In fact, more than okay. I thought he was good. When he first came into the team, into the club, it felt like he was playing and having good moments in matches. It feels like the moments are happening more and more. In fact, he's putting together spells in matches where he's good. So he's going from moments to spells. And I think he's still developing, he's still settling in to the Premier League. And he's already come up with a couple of assists, a couple of goals and so on. And he's a different type of winger to Amari Hutchinson. So I think you're right to say that we can accommodate both. A couple more people in the comments. Here comes the obligatory Nico Williams, excellent again comment. Thank you to Ricky Dutt for that, because of course Nico Williams does seem to be excellent week in, week out. Jackie Howarth is with us in the comments as well. Hi Jackie, she's agreeing with Paul about an away win being due, or rather, saying an away win is due rather than the draw, I should say. So away at Liverpool next. We did win there last season, so you never know. Thank you, Peter. Hit like and subscribe button, guys. Please do that if you can. And it does look like Andrew is perhaps using CCTV tonight. His picture's cleared up again, and we'll stick with it. Helen, you touched on the subs, and we'll get to them in just a moment. But I want to kind of get your thoughts really on the season so far. So while since we spoke to you, so just kind of like pausing on the game momentarily, so much has happened. How have you been feeling? Because you go pretty much every game, I think, at the City Ground, and you've got young people with you as well as other adults. So you've got a lot on your plate when you're going to matches. How have you found the City Ground this season compared to last season?
Quiet, really quiet. The atmosphere is so different. We're taking people along each week who may have never come to a match before, and you're like, this is amazing. This is Forest. This is. And it's not. The atmosphere is like, yeah, it's just lost it. But that's what happens when you're not winning matches every week. Last year was just crazy, wasn't it? Crazy, amazing, wonderful, and that's just not football unless you're one of. Well, yeah. Even Liverpool are struggling, aren't they? They've lost. Is it 7 out of their 10 matches?
Quite a few. They lost again today. Got hammered.
Exactly. So we got a chance next week, right? Or
I
next
think so.
match when you play them away. So yeah, I hope. It's just been. I think with the Warriors and that, but they were gutted when Nuno left. So it's been quite difficult for our young people. And yeah, it's just been a very strange season. But hopefully we're starting to see the wins coming again, the positivity that the crowd certainly got behind them today, and it got a lot louder. And yeah, it was nice to be chanting, all the same songs again. I think once we get a bit more magic off the pitch, we'll start getting a bit more magic on the pitch. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I thought of you guys when Nuno left the club, because obviously your connection through Warriors with Forest is really strong, but Nuno was a big part of that when you visited. So I did think of you guys, and then the Warriors were invited back in when Ange was manager. So you briefly got to meet Ange as well. So I kind of wondered how that experience would have been, because obviously he's a different character, a different personality. I can't quite remember how far in it was since that you guys met up with him, but just briefly, how was he when he was manager? Did he take to you guys warmly and so on?
We really didn't get much of an opportunity to meet him. Really, it was we were part of the Magic Moments thing.
Right.
He walked past us. He was very smiley. A couple of our young people ran towards him and tried to give him a hug, and he gave him a hug back, which was nice. A few others were less than enthusiastic, but yeah, I knew Ange had related with a young lad when he was at Spurs, and he one of my friends' lads who's got Down syndrome, and Ange was absolutely brilliant with him, and he made a real effort with him. So I thought, as a person, I'm sure he was lovely. As a manager, he wasn't right for us, was he? So, but Nuno was so personable, and you're not going to get that in very many people, are you? But he was just amazing. And last week, the young people sent him a video to Nuno, and a signed shirt from the Warriors, and he's we got a response back, which was lovely. So I think that we can move on now as Warriors, and they can embrace Sean Dyche and hopefully meet him and see that he's a lovely guy too.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's great you've got that connection still with Nuno, even though he's moved on. I think because that should be kept if it can be. But Sean Dyche is our manager now, and so an era under Sean Dyche is well and truly underway. And we're going to talk more about that a bit later on. But let's get back to the match. Just sticking with you for one more minute, Helen. And then, so we go into the second half. We're 1-1. How were you feeling? I mean, I was at Man United last week when we came into the second half 1-0 down and scored 2 quick goals. And I was kind of hoping we might have another quick start to the second half. And it just didn't seem to happen. I was thinking it was going to peter out to a 1-1 draw. What were your thoughts as the second half started to unfold?
I was just thinking, let's get some substitutions made. Let's kind of get the crowd going, get everybody feeling like something's going to change. And we needed that change, I think. And I to be honest, when I go to a match, I embrace the whole kind of feeling of the atmosphere and everything. When I've got my lad with me, I can't always focus on every single move, what's going on and that kind of thing. But I could sense the atmosphere was just like a bit. The amount of whinging from all the people around me was a bit. So I think Sean Dyche got it exactly right by getting those subs on and changing up. And I was surprised there was going to be 3 of them. But yeah, tight. The guy next to me was like, "What's he doing?" And I said, well, "He holds the ball up well. He's key in doing that." And it wasn't like Igor Jesus was kicking loads of, scoring loads of goals. So yeah, I mean, it was a hard watch for a while, but it definitely improved with the substitutions.
It did. And Andrew, those subs, all 3 of them seemed to make a bit of an instant impact. Not in terms of we scored straight away, but the team lifted, but only for a few minutes or so. And then again, I was worried because I thought it settled down into more patterns of play that saw Leeds have a couple of attacks and Forest weren't really stringing anything together. It looked a little bit disjointed again. I liked Taiwo coming on. I think that the rebirth of Taiwo is something I'm interested to get your thoughts on. Yates, who I know Helen is a huge fan of, I am too. He does a great job. And Dyche has pointed out Taiwo and Yates and Hutch in his post-match because those 3 subs came on and did different jobs for the team. So let's kind of go straight into the goal that takes us 2-1 up. I mean, Hutchinson has had a rough time in terms of not in the Europa squad, can't play in that competition, limited minutes under all managers this season. And again, listening to the conferences after the match, both Hutch and Dyche said that they'd had a chat yesterday and Dyche had assured him, look, you're still young, you're in your Premier League career, you're still developing, but your time will come, you'll have your opportunity. And boy, he took it today, didn't he?
He absolutely did. And I think what the game needed, and to kind of add on to what Helen said about the subs came on and you kind of know what you're going to get with those players. I think you need, big players to have big moments. And Hutchinson feels like if he's not quite there yet, he's one of those players that's going to be that kind of player that can have those big moments. And you saw it. I mean, he was always on the front foot. He likes to take players on. He likes to try and create chances. And it just takes it to pay off one time, and we scored. And I think to Gibbs White's credit as well, and to an extent Taiwo's, because I think if Taiwo touches that ball, he was offside when that first ball came in. I think what we've seen in Hutchinson so far is that youth, that directness, and I think that's exactly what the game needed. So to Sean Dyche's credit, it was really funny watching our chat in our WhatsApp group, because we kind of called this at half time. It was obvious with Sangare on the yellow card that he needed to come off at some point, and Yates was the obvious replacement. Yates in a game against Leeds United feels like a better marriage than any other combination that I can think of. Taiwo coming on to be able to hold the ball up and introduce that second phase when you're trying to break from defense to attack was perfect, and we're starting to see that old Taiwo back again. And Hutchinson in place of Nico gives you more natural width. He gives you a player that is comfortable on that side, is comfortable going forward and taking players on. And the proof in the pudding, he cut inside, he put a great ball in, and Gibbs White gets a touch and we get a goal. So yeah, Dyche got it absolutely spot on and should absolutely take all the credit for that, because it changed the game.
And it wasn't just that goal as well. Hutch had looked lively straight away. Now, he was looking to get involved down the wing and take players on. But a word from Murillo, I mean, that ball over to Hutch was fantastic. And in fact, Murillo was awarded the player of the match from the EPL's point of view. So I thought he had another good game at the back. And our defence landscape is looking a little bit better. I'm not saying it's perfect. I still had my kind of heart in my mouth and everything on set pieces, because there were a few corners and so on. But did you feel that we needed a third goal? Because I did. Even when we went 2-1 up, even though Leeds weren't really kind of coming at us and offering that much, I still felt like we needed a third goal. But I never really truly felt in my heart we were going to get it. So when Hutch takes on his man and beats him on the outside and goes down for the penalty, it was kind of a hey presto moment. Were you as surprised as me?
I suppose it's not the Forest way, is it? We like to make things tight and nervous, so it was nice to get a penalty, which was kind of an obvious penalty as well, really. interesting on the first 2 goals that they were both long balls again. Like they were both a centre back pumping the ball up. You win that first ball, and then you get onto the end of the second ball, and you can actually put a good ball in the box. So it's interesting that we have really moved away from the Ange style in that respect, and it's working on both those first 2 goals. And then on the third one, I think Leeds played into our hands by their subs. I think their subs helped us because he almost tried to do his own move of making the triple change, but putting Harrison at left back was just a bit of a disaster move for them, because Hutchinson his eyes lit up, and you could see every time we got the ball, we just pushed it out to that side, and he would get ahead of him, and obviously he then earned the penalty by getting round him really well. And Harrison, just clips his leg, and it's kind of apart from the fact it's on the line, it's an obvious foul, so it's just a case of if it's in the box, it's definitely a penalty. And then Elliot Anderson is just so cool on penalties. We saw that last season in all those penalty shootouts. Under all that pressure, he just steps up and manages to slam it home. And so I had no doubt about him scoring the penalty.
He was the one I wanted to take it as well.
I thought it was going to be him, yeah.
It looked like they were having a little bit of an argument. I just caught them. It wasn't like obvious, not a big argument, but it looked like Ndoye wanted it. It looked like he was begging for it. And it looked like Yates had to get involved and say, no, it's Anderson. I wasn't sure if that was the case or not. But that's what it looked like.
I think once Williams had hold of the ball, I thought it's going to be Anderson. I just think they come as a pair, but I didn't think Williams was going to take it. So I think it's probably Anderson. But no, look, it obviously it sort of settled the game. I think Leeds had they did have another big chance after that with Calvert-Lewin's header, which he ended up hitting his shoulder. That was a better chance that he could on another day have put away. And I think he had one from a corner as well that he perhaps could have tucked into the corner of the net. So there were still a couple of chances for Leeds, but it's just nice to see us score 3 goals, having seen the season that we've had. The lack of goals so far takes us back to that first day of the season. And there was a little spell of 5 minutes after we got the second goal where we actually looked like that team again. Everything just seemed a bit quicker. The passes were quicker. The players just seemed to lift their shoulders. And it was almost like watching that team from the first day of the season again. So hopefully that's just a case of the confidence kind of coming back, growing slowly.
And so, what about Anderson on penalties, Helen? Gibbs White has never been someone I've been very happy with taking a penalty, albeit it was Thursday that it was his first miss for Forest. But I've never been convinced. I was very happy that Chris Wood was taking pens when he's been fit again. Is it Ando on pens for you now, do you reckon, Helen? Because he looks fantastic, doesn't he?
I mean, Anderson is fantastic all round, I would say. So he's probably the most reliable, along with Nico Williams, the most reliable player, the most hardworking. Put him on penalties. That's absolutely fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nico missed one in the shootout, but he is also good on pens. Anderson just looks so assured. So
I did think Nico was going to, I was a bit concerned that Nico was going to be the one taking it, because the ball just kept being passed from person to person to person. So, but yeah, Anderson was the right guy. And like you say, as soon as he had it, you thought it's going to go in the net.
I think that's what they do now. They kind of shield it from the opposition and then at the end pass it on to the penalty taker and so on. Richard, my podcast partner, has popped into the comments to say, hello all, what a day. He's out with the family, but he says, bless you guys. And Helen, you are a legend. And we absolutely agree with that, she says, raising her glass of wine up. Daz, or one of the Dazes in the comments, says we defended corners and set pieces well today. Yeah, I think we did, but as Danscape touched on, there were one or two Calvert-Lewin moments that, maybe another player in better form might have punished us. So there's still work to be done. Okay, so we come away with a 3-1 win. We're back on track, or so it would seem. We'll talk more about that after this break.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
Our good friend, the cheese trader, was at the match today. He called me after. He was dancing in the Upper Brian Clough right at the end on video. Just wanted to show me his dancing skills. Very good, I have to say. And then we had a chat after, and he won't mind me saying he was one who was less impressed with Dan Doy. He had everything to say about the subs that we've had to say, and being impressed with those. So it just goes to show that maybe different views, different people have different angles, perhaps, and so on. But the Cheese Trader in York is our sponsor. You can grab your cheese box for Christmas, and it's 10% off when you quote Talking Reds. Okay, right. So we have got 3 points. Helen, we move on to 9 points. There's the table on the screen for those that can see it. For those that can't, it was a vital win, which we all knew about, not least because it closes the gap now to West Ham, who are on 10 points, Burnley on 10 points, Leeds on 11, Fulham on 11, and Newcastle, who lost again today, on 12 points. Helen, I'm going to ask you this. What kind of finish? Look, I know it's an obvious thing. Anywhere outside the relegation places right now is going to be fine for everybody, I'm sure, because it's been such a shit start to the season. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's terrible. But realistically, where can you see us, based on what you've seen under Sean Dyche, can you see us getting up to maybe mid-table, like a 14th, 13th, 12th or higher? Is that something you think we can achieve? Or are you just happy to take 17th and win the Europa?
Winning Europa? No, I do not want to be Spurs. If the confidence stays like it seems to be doing right now, I can see us being like 10th, 11th. I can't see us reaching the lofty heights of last year. But yeah, getting mid-table be amazing. And yeah, it just comes with the confidence, doesn't it? The confidence, the belief, and not too many more injuries, because, that's going to plague us if it's, if we end up with more injuries, we're a bit stuffed. But we do have a stronger squad, a deeper squad, I suppose, with more players available. But with Europa games as well, we are going to get more happening. So I don't know. Yeah, midway, that's perfect for me.
Okay. We want to talk about where we were, guys. Where we were under Nuno last season. Helen's touched on it. Flying high. Everything brilliant. Pre-season was a shambles. The Eddie situation comes in. Nuno gets sacked. Where we've been. So we're still like only a couple of weeks into the season. The Ange experiment, the Ange saga comes and goes. And so where we are, Sean Dyche comes in, and we're now looking at the Dyche era having 2 wins, 2 draws, and just 1 defeat in the 5 games he's taken charge of. Forest at home, and here's a slide from Match of the Day from earlier. 3 games under Sean Dyche, a 2-0 win against Porto, the 2-2 draw last week against Man U coming from behind, and then, of course, today's win against Leeds. So, all of a sudden you can start to put positive spins, Andrew Cove, on a whole host of different stats and so on. And Dyche post-match was talking about a winning mentality now being something he wants to implement, and that shifting mentality into the team. Where are you on the way forwards? Because it has been a rocky road. I talked about where we were, where we've been, and where we are now. Are we anywhere close to where you think we should be currently, based on what we've seen? The question I'm kind of asking is, look, bearing in mind how much of a shit show it's been, is it any surprise we are where we are? And can you see a way forward? Oh, you're on mute, yeah. Just on mute there, mate, I think. Oh, no, he's gone. Mm-hmm. Danscape, you take over. I'll ask you the same question.
I can look. I've always been able to see a way forward with Sean Dyche coming in. I think it's slower than I would have liked, obviously, for this season to be, and yeah, a bit more of a steady season than perhaps we could have had, and all that stuff. But I thought there was always a way forward, and I would think I was reasonably calm about a game like today. I think Dyche gets the job done. I think when you need to win games at home against teams that are around you, I think he gets that job done, and he finds a way to do it. So I was fairly calm about this kind of game. And I think when you put the table on there, I think we can go into those against all those teams on that list, maybe except Newcastle. you kind of go into all those reverse fixtures against those teams, and you think, well, we can get something from those games, and that's your next sort of 7-8 wins that we need to make sure we're safe. And I wouldn't go into any of those games fearing playing those teams, and then you obviously just need a surprise couple of results along the way, hopefully. So yeah, look, there's definitely hope, but whatever happens next weekend, potentially we're probably still sat in the bottom 3, so we've still got a job to do and got to obviously go game by game, as we always say.
I mean, look, that table's on the screen at the moment. Still to play Brighton, still to play Everton, still to play Fulham. I think out of all those teams that are in that kind of bottom half, there's still 3 teams that we haven't played at all this season. Just kind of scrolling up, there's teams that we haven't played in the likes of Man City, Spurs, Villa, and Liverpool. I think just scanning through that quickly. So, and all of a sudden, then we're at the end of the first round of fixtures. So Andrew's back with us. Is your microphone working now, buddy?
You tell me.
Yes, it is. Okay, so I was asking you about the Dyche era underway, and it's been a horrible season so far. But is it any surprise based on the rockiness under Nuno, the crapness under Ange, and so on? And Pat Brett says, and Pat again won't mind me saying so, wasn't really enamoured with Dyche coming in, were you, Pat? And he says, yeah, Dyche definitely has steadied the ship. Not a Dyche fan, but he could be the man for the moment. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's what we need right now. I think we're almost at a point where we have to write the majority of this season off in terms of what our initial expectations were. We were thinking, let's go for top 6 again, maybe top 4, nice win in Europe as well, and a nice progression in Europe, and that'll be great. That seemed like an evolution from last season. That's changed. Now we're just, if we can get mid-table, I think we'd all snap your hands off right now. Nice run in Europe and just reset. I think we're now looking at next season. In that respect, one thing that I have liked, and Helen touched on this earlier, was identity. Like under Nuno, the club had an identity on and off the field. We saw all the feel-good stuff. We saw stories of fans from overseas visiting the City Ground. We saw the connection with the Warriors. We saw all that positivity off the pitch, and that fed onto the pitch as well. And there was just this great community within the club. We kind of lost that when Nuno left, and then with Ange coming in, it felt like we were disconnected from the football side of things. Today felt different. You had the introduction of Stephen Crean, the guy, the hero who had the incident earlier in the week. We had a good win on the field. We're starting to steady the ship and move things back in the right direction. So, Helen, you made a point earlier about liking Matt singing, Forest all over the world. It felt like, we've turned a corner, that we can start doing that and we can enjoy those moments again. And that feeds both ways. You're going to see that on the field as well, because the players will respond to that. To your point as well on the atmosphere, I've noticed that watching from here on the TV, it doesn't seem like the same City Ground that it was last year. Now, maybe that's partly a lot of new supporters that have found the club, but maybe it's just they've not felt like singing. They've not felt like, they've been enjoying, the games. So I think we turned a corner. I think you've seen that today, that it felt closer to the old Forest of last season than it has done all season, with the exception of obviously that opening day win under Nuno. So yeah, I think we've turned a corner, and I think onwards and upwards from here.
Paul Golding in the comments says, we did start playing too deep at one point and I was worried. It's not going to be a 5-minute fix, although it does feel like after 5 games that a lot of fixing has taken place, because we were in such a bad place under Ange. And I was one that was trying so hard to give this guy a chance and say, look, let's give him time, because how can he implement his principles in such a short space of time? But literally, it is a case that football is a ruthless, cutthroat industry, and it's all about results. And so when they're not happening and he's out the door and you turn to the next guy, it kind of does have to be almost an instant fix. And so Dyche coming in with the Porto win straight away made the place feel good again. Away at Bournemouth was horrible, but away at Bournemouth is horrible every year. I mean, wasn't as bad as last year. So even that, in many ways, is kind of a bit of a positive. We should have won against Sturm Graz on Thursday. I think that's the only kind of game so far that I'm like a bit kind of, fed up about. But then you look at the squad and the players you had available and what you had to do. and we talked about it in the episode we did on Friday. There was enough done from Deitch and the coaching team to win the game. The Yates header and Morgan Gibbs-White penalty, that's the game won there and then. You can't legislate for Gibbs-White missing a penalty in the way he did. And I know players miss penalties all the time, but it was a really poor penalty. But Haaland took one today, and it was almost like a carbon copy of that penalty, and he missed as well. So it does happen. It was interesting that Morgan Gibbs-White, in his post-match interview today, said that Thomas Tuchel had phoned him after the Europa game and joked about never taking penalties again. But, he'd phoned him and said he wasn't in the squad. And Morgan looks like he's taken it quite well. He's quite mature. And so I was really impressed that he got another goal today. I'm not saying I was impressed with his overall performance. I thought he did okay. I think his form has still been, sporadic. But had he scored that penalty on Thursday night, we'd be talking about a player who scored 4 goals in 4 games. So, that Porto penalty, Helen, how important do you think that's going to turn out to be in the whole grand scheme of Morgan's season? And do you think that we might get the Morgan of last year back again? Do you think it's moving towards that? He's starting to pop up with more goals now.
I hope so. I mean, for all of them, it's just this confidence thing, isn't it? When he said after, which match was it? The first one with Deitch, and he said not the first. I can't remember which one, but when he said we can breathe again, I just remember thinking he must have been feeling so trampled on and fed up, and unable to bring his creativity. Sometimes his flicks and tricks and all that, I was just like, what are you doing? But it feels to me like Sean Dyche has told him, actually, just be yourself, play how you play, and it will come. And I hope that's what they said, because on a good day, he's amazing. On a bad day, he's atrocious. It's like all of us, though, isn't it? I mean, if he gets that confidence and that opportunity, and he keeps scoring those goals, and his teammates, respond in the way that he's wanted them to, he can be the player he was on certain days. But he's always been a bit up and down. I don't think he's always been consistent, but he's got that magic when it's the right day. So hopefully that we'll see more of it.
Dan, before the game, there were some stats being shown on Sky. I'm not sure if you were watching it at that point, but it showed Forest being bottom of the kind of league when it came to shots and shot conversions and other things. And in 20th position, it was pretty shocking. Elliot Anderson, when they did a midfield comparison, was the very top out of a whole selected players from midfield, in terms of different metrics and so on. So Anderson clearly standing out in a poor Forest team or a team that's performed poorly so far, because I don't believe that we will continue to be a poor Forest team, and we've certainly seen us turning a sort of corner. I wanted to ask you as the stat man, and you probably don't have it to hand, so maybe this will be for next time, but what kind of metrics are you aware of about teams like Forest that have started the season in the way that we have and not been able to convert the shots that they've converted? And then what kind of teams have had that kind of performance, and have they always ended up getting relegated, or have any of them managed to break free and shoot up the table a little bit? Is there anything you can tell us about that kind of thing?
Imagine if I said to you now that everyone gets relegated after this great result today. No, look, it's still tough. Look, most teams that had our start do, the majority finish in the bottom 3, right? But there are the exceptions, and I think the quality shows through. The one exception that is in there is that I think there was a Spurs team in the early 2000s that had a terrible start to the season under Juande Ramos. Yeah, if you remember him. Yeah. And then Harry Redknapp came in and he turned them around, and they finished 8th. But they had the likes of Modric and Bale in that team. They had the quality players, so they were never really going to be relegated. It's finding the right manager for the team, wasn't it, basically? So hopefully that's more like what we'll see for us, is that we've found the right manager that's going to get us. Like I say, for me, it'll be steady. It won't be that we'll suddenly go and finish 8th and go on an incredible run to the end of the season, but I think we'll have enough runs within the games to move us up. And I think we're seeing, like I touched on with the long balls for the goals, I just think we're going back to what worked for us last season. So our chance creation and all that will never be up there at the top, because it wasn't last season, was it? Right? We were like a 14th place team if you looked at the chances created. but we're doing it the way that we know works last time out. So, get the ball into dangerous areas, get the strikers to get a touch on, and then get the cross into the box. And, that's what we seem to have done the last few games, and it's worked. So I think we'll see some games that frustrate us. Like, we won't necessarily have a lot of the ball and it'll be a little bit too direct. But at the end of the day now, I think everyone's in the mindset that we just get the points on the board however works best.
And would it be accurate that the teams most recently that had similar starts and got themselves out of trouble would be Palace from last year and maybe Wolves from last year? Were they in the kind of same ballpark or not quite as bad a start?
Similar, yeah, similar. I think it was actually quite similar until the last two games. They started to turn the corner perhaps a little bit earlier than we were doing. But again, with Palace, I think they, as a team, they changed their style last season when they weren't getting the results. I think they went more direct, and they still play direct now this season, and it works for them. So I think sometimes you just got to, realize what's not working, as well as the change of manager. And I think that's what's interesting with the league all the time is teams, like Newcastle are obviously looking a bit struggling at the minute, but you kind of know that some teams will just never stick with the manager. If they get into a certain position, they'll change manager, and that can shift the whole picture. So we've done that early enough to obviously hopefully move away from trouble without it being too late on. But I think some of those other teams still might end up with a change of manager, and they'll hope to have a sudden run of form that maybe gets them closer to avoiding the drop.
Okay, brilliant. I think we'll finish things there. Absolutely fantastic from on the panel tonight. Thanks to everyone for being in the comments. Please do remember to hit like on the video.
We're super grateful for your support. Please hit like and subscribe. Or if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can follow us to be sure to never miss a Talking Reds episode.
I had the one with the voiceover. I scared myself then. Didn't mean to push that button. There we go. Any closing thoughts from you guys? I'll come to you, Andrew, first. Anything to close on the match? Any thoughts about Forest going forward you want to close on?
No, I just think it was the result that we needed against a team that we should have been beating, and we did. I think it wasn't pretty at times, but it's moved the needle in the right direction. I think we can kick on from this. Players will hopefully buy in on the back of the other results that we've started to see under Dyche, and I think we can start to now move up the table rather than looking down the table at what's below us. I think we can start to feel positive again.
Fantastic. And Helen, how are the Warriors? How are they? It was great to see the pictures on social media all the time. And a few faces, and Matt, of course, and Joseph, who we adore. He's such a character. What's happening with the Warriors at the moment? Anything upcoming for you guys?
Not really. I mean, just carry on training every week. I missed that last match because I had to run the session for the Warriors. But as it turns out, I didn't miss much, so that's absolutely fine. The one in Austria. But yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to hopefully a few more opportunities around Christmas with Forest, but I don't know what they are yet. I'm just waiting to hear about them. And yeah, it's going strong. We've got about 80 members, so it's a real positive thing. People from all over the county of Nottinghamshire, so yeah, it's good. It's the highlight of everyone's week, so that's good. Apart from
we love the Warriors, and when you came on the channel, it was great to have you and Joseph. And I think the Forest community have taken you guys to their hearts, and that hasn't changed. So great to have you join us tonight, Helen. I really appreciate it. And Danscape, any closing thoughts before you go, buddy?
Just on Hutchinson and his sub role, I think it's interesting. Last season we were always desperate to upgrade those subs of Jota and Sosa, weren't we? So that when they came on, they actually had an impact, or more of an impact, more often. And I just think Hutchinson has kind of finally shown that today, that we've got that kind of squad where in a tight game we can bring someone on who will have that quality, just a step up from what we had last season. So hopefully it's a good sign of that. And again, eventually these things pay off once you get a bit of consistency and stability and all that. So yeah, that's it really. Nice result. Hopefully a nice 2 weeks now instead of what could have been. I'm sure we were all fearing the worst for this international break, and it's a lot nicer where it is now.
Andrew touched on it earlier that Stephen Crean had been at the match today. There's a picture of him on screen. You can see that. And he was rightly so given a hero's welcome, because we all remember, we all know about his bravery in the face of real danger on that train just a week or so ago. And Elliot Anderson met him as well. And Elliot said on his social media, I think it must be Instagram, Elliot said, a much needed win heading into the international break. An honour to meet such a hero today in Stephen Crean. Proud to come together as part of the Garibaldi family. So, yeah, it means a lot to us fans, really, that players can connect in many, many different ways, whether it's with the Warriors, whether it's with heroes like Stephen Crean, whether it's just with anybody in the fan base. We all feel like we are part of the same family, the same Garibaldi family, and we all want to move forwards together. And we've had some rocky moments this season already. I've touched on them as well. And I know one person in the comments said, I thought I'd never hear the words Ange and Spurs again. And I promised that I'll wash my mouth out. But no, we have to reflect on where we've been this season and where we are right now and where we're going to. And it does feel like, you know, when you get a win, everything feels great, of course. But it does feel like we are really, definitely and genuinely moving in the right direction. So let's all come together. Let's stick together. We've got a nice international break now to catch our breath. And then it's Anfield away, back to Liverpool. And, you know, they're not having a great season either. So the win last season, the Callum Hudson-Odoi goal that got everything kick-started in that campaign, you never know. It might just happen again. See you soon.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.